Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying here to the panel discussion. And I want to welcome my panelists. Thank you for being here as well. And yeah, today we're going to talk about an insight report about being a tech entrepreneur, and the mindset. We will talk about some stepping stones and some pain points and a lot of other stuff that from the experience of the three panelists, we will hear about all of those things that you have to go through, what is normal to go through, and what you maybe can expect and surpass that way. So just a general introduction into the talk, and I will keep it short because we are already short on time. So recently, it seems like there's a lot more tech startups in Germany, and I think that's actually kind of true, especially if you go to Berlin. But also here in Hamburg, we have a lot more tech startups and tech entrepreneurs that are founding companies. And the problem is that a few or most of them have the problem that they don't survive really long in the environment that they are thrown into. And that's what we will talk about with the three panelists today. So starting off, we will introduce each of the panelists really shortly. I will just ask them about a few basic things, about their story, what they did, and we will try to keep it under 4 minutes. And then we will have a short pulse check, meaning I will make statements and the three of them just have to answer with I agree or I disagree. And after that we will get into the discussion and we will talk about a lot of things like the pain points, opinions on different topics, and yes, let's start. So, each of you can just say like 3 sentences about what you did, how you founded your first startup, what was your first idea, or should we do it in different setup?
First one, oh God. I'm Philipp, I'm 18 years old. This is my first startup, but we do IT security. Mainly, we are focused on penetration tests, security reviews, management consulting, and so on. And yeah, the problem with me was I founded my company with 16, and the problem was that I can't be the CEO of a company, so I just did a few things. So the short story is I founded my company with 16 and security, and we are based here in Hamburg and have some distribution offices in Dach.
And you actually had to go to court to get the ability to found your company, to be head of your
company. That's the story that some...
Okay. No?
Yeah, of course, it's true,
okay.
But the pain part.
Okay. Short introduction of Betz.
Sebastian, I'm one of the co-founders, managing directors of About You. Within our founders team, I'm responsible for all tech and product departments. And I founded my first company when I was 16, doing school, and focused on web development and technology solutions, and sold this company as a kind of acqui-hire to the Otto Group to found and start About You.
Hi, my name is Stefan Richter. I am the founder and co-founder of Freiheit.com Technologies. I'm 52 years old, so a little bit older than these guys, maybe in some together like you, I don't know. And I started programming 35 years ago, also around 16. And I paid my studies with writing software for people. At that time it was completely different than what it is today, of course. And I founded the company in 1998. 1999 we did the incorporation, and which sounds cooler, like founded in the last millennium. And yeah, today we are now 120 people, 90% are software engineers, and we are building software. And I started this business because I just wanted to write code every day. So it's got a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, for most tech entrepreneurs, I think it is. So just 2 more questions really shortly, and I just wanted from each of you to know what was your first idea, like the first thing you can remember as an idea like you thought, oh, that could be a cool idea for a company? Who wants to start? Maybe other way around, Stefan first.
Oh, actually, for me, it was not that I wanted to start a company. I just wanted to write code and want to do it myself. When I started, it was very much the waterfall time. So people were writing software in a way that I thought was completely wrong. Like you wrote something in a document and people were working on documents, and then after years and years it would be given to the programmers and then they write code. And most projects failed. And for me it was like, if I was very young, I thought like, am I the only one seeing this? This is like completely wrong. Why are they repeating that? I want to have a company which does this completely different. You should do this iteratively and all this. So this was even before the agile stuff. So for me, it was completely obvious, and I think for all programmers, that you cannot just write paper and then after years you start writing code. So you should start coding as fast as possible. So for me, the idea was actually to have a company that does software engineering completely different. And this is what we did. We just did it. We didn't want to evangelize people. We just want to do it differently.
For me, I would say, yeah, when I started my first company when I was 16, it was not the goal, as you said, to found a company. I think it was the goal to build kind of cool products out of it. And I think during that time I realized, or to be honest, when I was kind of 14 or something like that, I couldn't code, and I realized that I have to learn coding because otherwise I'm not able to build these kind of products. And that was the reason why I learned code, and then I built my own products. And then at some point I realized, okay, you can monetize your products, and that was the point when I founded the company. But I think I never founded the company because I want to found a company. I just want to build cool products and yeah, earn money with digital businesses or products.
Okay, cool.
It's so fascinating to listen to these two stories, because in my life it was the other way around. So I started with my hobby, that was IT security. I did pen test in my free time, and there was a question, because I also consult some companies and some federal offices, that I have to found my own company because we have some financial problems with that. So they transfer to me money, and I'm a private person who don't have something to do with company, who don't own a company, who don't have a company, or just so on. And yeah, the question was, how can I do that? I started to build my own freelancing, and because that was a good idea, I expect that there can be something more. And yeah, the Kalweit ITS GmbH was there, and I think the very interesting point in my life was that there was no way that I think I have to build a product, or I have to bring this into the security. But for me it was, I use devices, I use technologies, I use services that have all something to do with digitalization. And I already know that all these technologies are unsecure. And my point was, I can make it secure. But if I have more people who do that, we can build a better society, a better world. Yes, I know it's a little bit a dream, but that's my way. And I think I did more things wrong than right, but I'm here, and I can say we have our office right next to this cinema, and yeah, it works. And yeah, this is my story, I would say.
Cool, thanks for sharing that. So I think what we got out of those 3 statements was basically there's 2 ways to approach that whole thing. So either you really just want to build something, and then at some point, because you invest so much time and effort into it, it just becomes a company, and it's just the next step to do it. Am I wrong about that, or is that the essence of what you said? So basically, at some point, you just have to take it to the next step because you want to do more stuff in the area that you are started to doing, like in the beginning. Just following that, what I think is also always really interesting to most people is how did you first fund your company? So independent of why you started it, but how did you first get the funding? So you started developing stuff, for example. you started developing it, and then you just started earning money, and that way you funded your company, or did you actually go somewhere and raised capital at a bank or some? I'm not sure how you did that.
So just for me, I think we have to differ between the company you founded first. It was Creative Task, and this company was completely bootstrapped. So we didn't waste any money or something like that. So of course we had to generate revenue streams first, and I think that worked really well. So we started kind of 50% of our time we spent on building bootstrapped software as a service products, and 50% of our time we did some agency work and consulting work. And I think this kind of consulting work enabled us to build and spend money and time on the software as a service products. For About You, that's a completely different story, and of course we waste some money to have the opportunity to scale this business.
Yeah, we also started with zero, and this is really an interesting experience, because once you start a company and you start with zero, then you get into a survival mode. So you have to, now you really feel you have to survive that. You can see how much money you have in the bank left, and we were always keeping a spreadsheet of that. How much time can we survive without any invoices? And this is what we still do. So, and at that time it was like 3 weeks, and then it was 5 weeks, and then back to 2 weeks. So it was always like on the brink, and we were very living cheap and everything, and tried to give us not as much salaries and put everything in the bank. And for the first 5 years, we never extracted any profits. So we put everything in the bank. And even then, when we had profits, we put it in an extra bank account where we were not able, or we were supposed to not use it for private things, because this would be like our second buffer of money. So the first thing was the buffer of the company, the second was a private one. And we did this I think for 10 years. We were very paranoid. We still are, because when you start with zero, I think you always stand up in the morning and say is this going to continue again? It worked? It's still for me, we're doing this almost 20 years, and it's still, I think, will next year be as good as the other 20 were? So we were always making profit. It was always getting bigger and better, but it's really still for me that I'm not feeling I'm done, or I don't have to care about that anymore. And this is I think the spirit that you have when you don't get a load of money, where you then try to figure out what to do with that.
Cool. Philipp?
A very good question, and of course I don't know what I have to say, but if I have to, I would say I started with minus 3,000 euros. Why? Because it was my hobby, so I invest all that money that I become from things that people with 15, 16 can do, and invest that in computers and infrastructure and so on. And then I realized freelancing is a good chance to go to the next level, and yeah, so on. With other words, for 1 year I become an investment from 36,000 euros, and it's small. It's not much money, but if I think about that, I would say that was something that I never expect. And the very interesting point is that this was money from someone who built also a security company, and the very interesting point is they formed this security company business for 20 years, and because that works so well, we become for the next year another investment from I would say 400,000, and that's something that I also yet can't realize, and it's something that I never expect, and I can't expect that because I'm just started with my hobby, and that's something that I never would. It was never my Ziel. I'm sorry. Yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. One more question to Stefan. So there was in the late 2000s, there was a shortage of offers to do programming work, because you said you had to go from paycheck to paycheck. I think right now it is, you can't rescue yourself of offers to do whatever development work, and it sounded in the beginning like you had problems to get get work at some point, or how did you mean that? Like, do you mean because from paycheck to paycheck?
No, actually, of course, end of 1990s, the internet bubble burst. So actually, we didn't start out to do internet things. Actually, we wanted to build software that ran in a browser, which was quite edgy at that time. Nobody was doing that. So and then the internet bubble burst, but we already had e-commerce customers who were already making money, like travel booking, stuff like that. So it was working well, but of course the interesting part, I think, when you start a company is that in the first couple of years it's the most difficult part because you're doubling your costs. So for example, when you go from 1 employee to 2, you're doubling your salary costs. If you go from 2 to 4, you're doubling again, and then you might need a new office, so you maybe double your office space costs. So I think this is why lots of people don't come over 10 people, because these first doubling effects are really difficult to handle, and you have to be very good in writing invoices, for example. I think a lot of people also die because they don't write invoices fast enough. So I am lucky that I founded this company together with my wife. She's the business manager, and this was really a turnkey moment where she was like, she was also, we both quit our jobs, and we lost the apartment that was sponsored by our boss, and we lost our car that we had and the phones that we had at that time, and we were like starting at zero. And she was doing freelance stuff, I was starting this, and then we both found out we are both better together. And then she found also a cigar box on my desk, and this was full of receipts and stuff that I wanted to invoice, and she said, like, should I take care for that? And this was like the turning moment, because from then on she was not taking care of the invoices, of course, but about the whole money management. And so it was not that we didn't have enough demand. It was really more like that you have to handle the money that you get. You have to write invoices as fast as you can to have a positive cash flow. And this means that it was going up and down, because then we went to a more expensive office and then a larger office. And this was also in the first 2-3 years. And this was very expensive to do. But and we always had to dare to do it. It was like, can we really afford this big office now? Because when we moved in, it was like almost empty, and then 1 year later, it was almost full. So this is really cool, and we always keep track of that. Still, what I said, and now we are always at least 9 months money in the bank without having any invoices. So this also makes us independent. We can work for people, we don't have to work, and we still don't have a sales force, so we don't have people selling us. People come to us because we are recommended. So 100% of our business recommendation business now. At that time, nobody knew us. We had to call people, but only for the first 5 years. And since then, yeah, people call us. It's really cool.
Okay, I think that's a great insight into the problems in the beginning. So what I want to do next is a pulse check, and I'm just going to read, as I said, this statement. And I think the easiest way would be to just, I don't know, raise a hand if you agree, and if you disagree, just leave it down. And okay, I'm just going to go through it a little bit faster. So I'm an optimistic person. Okay. I still love coding. I still code a lot.
Or at home, then I'm a threat to the projects when I do this with them. I don't have enough time.
Okay. Anyone can start a company. Anyone can succeed starting a company. Okay, nice, good. The core idea for the company is important. The most important for the company is to get funding. Okay, I think we already covered that one in the beginning. It's easier to start a company in America than in Germany. It's easier to get funding in America for the same idea. Okay. You need to be able to code to be a tech entrepreneur. Okay, at least someone is raising a hand now. In some branches of the tech sector, it's easier to be successful than in others. Meaning, if you're, for example, in gaming, it's harder to succeed than, for example, in consulting. No? Yeah? Okay. One. Building a company spirit and binding employees to your company is essential for the success of the company. I constantly have new ideas that I could start new companies with. If I start a new company tomorrow, I will definitely succeed. Okay, almost done. Founding a company and private life go together well. Okay.
I think there's no separation.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's a special situation for you.
Work is life, life is work.
Oh, by the way, did you learn how to write invoices?
Yeah, I can do it, of course.
Okay, okay.
We also have our first contract on the wall, and Claudia first checked if it's okay if we keep it on the wall of our kitchen. But if you ever visit our company, you can see it.
Okay, cool. You should sell a company at some point. Founding my company was the best thing I could have done. That's it for the statements. Okay, I think we had a good idea where you all stand now, and I just have to quickly adapt what I will ask now. Okay, so generally, first thing I want to get into is this new formats that arise, I think just shortly. I haven't spent that much time looking into stuff like that, but for example, what do you think of formats like Shark Tank or Höhle des Löwen, so Cave of the Lion, for example? Do you think that's something that makes sense, or it completely, is it out of the point like casting shows, so people will get stars for 1 year and then they will go into the Nevada again? Or is it something that you think actually provides the people that start the companies in these shows with a benefit for them?
One statement, I would say, just a show effect.
I would say it's kind of, first of all, a good entertainment format. And I think in the end, of course, this show has kind of positive side effects to the founders from my perspective, because I think they can reach for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a huge amount of audience. And I think also these kind of coaches and so on can provide them with good contacts. And I think for a specific kind of product, it totally makes sense to use this kind of format. But I think not for all products. But I think it's more like entertainment. But of course, the people to go there, I think see or saw some positive side effects, at least if you just have a look at, for example, the visitor numbers in Google Analytics for the time when the show is on the air. Yeah, and then you see that you can gain a lot of traffic by the show, and of course you can gain a lot of popularity, and of course you can gain a lot of in the end, good contacts and new ideas how to scale your business. But of course, I think that's a complete different format compared to like like VCs or business angels and so on. But I think if you keep it this way, I think it's a fine format.
Do you think that shows like that actually provide a network to like hang on and have the possibility to access? I mean, for example, Frank Thielen has a big network, and if you really impress the people on this panel, then maybe like you have already an introduction to a network where you can actually get, I don't know, support in many different ways more easily.
Well, as I mentioned, I think it's different compared to, for example, what you get from get from as insights from, for example, business angel or from a venture capital company or incubator. But of course, I think because these people have kind of experience in some parts and some areas and some businesses, and I think they can, of course, consult you and coach you to prevent some failures, and of course, they can, for some parts, they can definitely boost your business network and also kind of your ideas. So for example, I think if you have easy to sell products, for example, like Happy Brush, then I think that's kind of a good format. And I think this, if you would ask the founders of Happy Brush, I'm pretty sure that they will tell you it was a good idea to go there, because I think they have, with their investors now, they have kind of people who tell them, okay, you can sell your products, for example, on marketplaces like Otto, like Amazon, like Zalando, like About You, and so on, and they can provide you with the contacts. And I think, so they can, of course, boost your company to the next level, but I think this only counts for specific areas, specific businesses, and specific ideas.
Okay.
I like the aspect that people see that you can create a company. Also, it's still incredibly hard to succeed with a product or with any business. But I think, for example, if your parents watch the show and they see it's not completely weird when somebody wants to start a company, maybe you are very young, you were sitting in your Kinderzimmer at that time and were like, and your parents were not like freaking out because you were like trying to start a company. And I think this has maybe a good effect on society that creates more possibilities for people to become entrepreneurs, even though not everybody can.
Okay. Another question I hope will force some more discussion is what's the most important or the most difficult part about funding a company, like in the first year? What will be the biggest risk of failing for you? Okay, maybe invoice writing, and for the others?
I'm pretty sure Stefan has also other topics to say about this. Yeah, to get started, from my perspective, I think one of the most important things at the beginning is that you really have to focus on the outcome and on the product. And I think this means like that you have to be really pragmatic in the way you design your software. You really have to choose the fastest way to design your software, to roll out your product, to get it live as soon as possible, to then afterwards listen to your data, do analysis, do A/B tests, and so on, to really kind of develop or add the maximum effort, or sorry, not effort, but value to your product. And I think that's really, really important. And I think that's completely different, for example, I think compared to how other companies work in a later stage, because then I think it's more like what's the best application framework, what's the best design, what's the best architecture, what's the best and most trustable deployment chain, whatever. And I think that's completely different at the beginning of a company, because there you have to prove that your product is worth it to found this company, and to see that the targeting group needs this product. And I think for this, it's really important, I think, to really prove that you have a good team, that they are efficient, that they are smart, that they are fast in rolling out the idea, that they are able to build this product at least, and that they are able to acquire customers. So I think it's a complete different mindset needed for the first year compared to the later stage years, because yeah, it's a complete different topic and it's a complete different challenge you have to do.
Okay, I saw a lot of head knocking. You agree both with that? Or
I totally agree, of course. And we are a lot of pen testers. You can find us in Hamburg, Munich, and so on. So in my opinion, in addition to this fact, I would say the first opinion that you have about a company is also the last one. Why? Because you have to set a statement, and I think the most important thing is that you use opportunities, and this is one to bring your company to a next level. In addition to that, we focused on that we have high quality standards, that we are our pen tester under the top 100 global, and that are facts that we already know, and that we want to communicate to other people outside. And yeah, I think that is one of very interesting and very important points that you have to focus on in the first year.
Yeah, and as you said, every stage of a company is different, and I'm doing this now 20 years, so I started from being the first employee and now working with 120 people. And it's it really in every stage, and also we had two worldwide financial crises in between and everything. So you always have to manage different things, and you have to learn, and you have to grow yourself. And of course today I'm not only the programmer anymore, I also have to learn new things like leading a larger organization, how to make an organization like that effective, keeping the same values that we had from the beginnings. If you hire people, you have to transfer these values somehow, because when we were smaller, it was very easy. When you're the first person in your company and you hire the second one, I only hired people which I already knew that were good. So, and then you sit together, and then you learn from each other from the behavior. But when you get bigger, you cannot just trust on the behavior that is transferred, because maybe there are many people that are new when you grow, and then you have to do something else also to instill behavior and creating some kind of company culture and behavior in everybody. And in the first year, it was, I think, one important takeaway is when you start with a company, maybe everybody can guess that, but you really have to work day and night. This is what I don't think that you can make a company and start with a work-life balance program. So you really, if you don't like that work, you shouldn't do it. And then it's not, for me, it was never work. Even though we were also programming at night on weekends, the first 2-3 years was like constant work, and I had like black rings under the eyes and everything. But it was a very, very satisfying time. I still love the time, and we have still people from that time working in our company as well. We still talk about the times in the trenches we were sitting together, like, you know. And yeah, it's really the most satisfying time, but it was also really, really hard because we were trying to survive, and you had to work all the time, but it was still satisfying, but still it is a survival.
And in addition to this, I think it's also important because what Stefan also mentioned is this kind of growth that you have to hire people and so on. And I think one experience I would say I made is like it's better to hire as less people as possible. Yeah, so even if you have the opportunity to hire 10 more people to add them to the developer team, from my perspective, keep your team as small as possible, which means like really kind of even if you have the opportunity, just don't hire the people and just stay with a small team at the beginning. That's really important because I think at the beginning there are so many opportunities will lead to the fact that the business will change and the product will change and so on. So I think it doesn't make sense to build kind of a huge organization around this product at the very first time. And I think you should do this after really 12, 24 months. So I think just put this kind of scale your business in terms of people really to the last point you can do it.
Okay. I think we have like 10 more minutes maybe to spend, and I just want to go over one thing, and then we have a Q&A session. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, if in retrospective, what would you have done different during the founding or the entire lifespan of your company? What was the point where you, if you would go back, would say, ah, crap, I would have done that different?
I think there were lots of things where we were wrong, where we made errors, where we were not good leaders or whatever. So there was lots of things that I could have done better. But in the end now, everything that we did is the sum of what we are now today. So even with the problems we created ourselves, with the things we did wrong, we were still able to learn from that and make it better the next time. So for example, one time in 2006, 2008 around, we grew too fast. We hired too many people. We had no onboarding program. We couldn't rely on behavior, whatever. So it really created problems, and we created this ourselves, and we were not able to handle that. But then we fixed that, and now we have an onboarding program, we have great training programs, whatever. So we are very much focused on learning, getting everybody on the same page, having great goal-setting programs like OKRs and stuff like that. So we really learned from that. And if we hadn't made that failure like almost 10 years ago, maybe today we would do this failure and then it would happen. So I don't see anything that we shouldn't have done, actually. Even failures are important.
I would agree on what Stefan said. I think first of all, I think I did a lot of failures in the past, yeah, and that's okay because I think everyone did failures, and I think it's more important to accept that you do failures and that you have to be honest to yourself and say, okay, maybe that wasn't the smartest idea, so that you correct these failures and to learn from your failures. And I think that's more important. And I think I would, in the past, sometimes I would say I just did it because I really strongly believed in it. And I think that's the right direction, because if you strongly believe in something, then you should do it. And afterwards, if you realize it was not the best way, then you have to be honest to yourself and teach yourself, okay, that wasn't the best idea. You should do it differently next time, and maybe you should correct your failure, that you put your company back on track. And I think that's even more important because, as Stefan said, I think the people working at the company now, the structure you do have, the organization, all of this, the processes, is as a result of the history of the company. And I think doing failures is fine, and I think also it's important that you have this kind of room for failures also for your team, because I think if you really strongly believe that that's the best direction to go, then you should do it, because otherwise it's demotivative and you don't, and I think it doesn't make sense.
There's just one opportunity, there's just one chance to grow up in life, not only in context of business, I think in whole life. And I think this opportunity is to fail, because if you fail, you have the opportunity, the possibility to have a learning, and I think learnings are the most important thing that you have in life and business and all other these aspects. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have like a ton of more questions, but maybe we'll do it next year again, and then maybe with a bigger panel, and then somehow force a discussion more and not have all streamlined in the same direction. So we have a few more minutes for questions from the audience. Are there any questions to the panelists? I cannot really see anything. There's one.
So if you could give one advice to someone who's starting a new company, what would this advice be?
Who wants to answer that? Someone?
Maybe every one of you.
We don't have a lot of time, so just one, Stefan.
Do you want to start a service business or a product business?
Product, I would say.
I would say, I'm pretty sure you know how to build it, because otherwise you wouldn't start it. But this is only 30% of the story. The other thing is getting product market fit, which you also already mentioned. And then the other 30% is really talking to people. And if you don't like to do that, it will get very difficult. So not just building it is a problem. The other stuff is much more the problem.
Yeah, and I think also one thing to add, I think it's important to stay focused at that time. I think if you talk to a lot of people, that totally makes sense, because you gain new expressions and experiences. But I think all the people will tell you different things. And I think it's important that you, at some point, also realize for yourself, okay, just trust on your gut feeling, or trust on wants, because I think otherwise you get defocused and we think, okay, should I build this product maybe in a different framework, language, whatever, because they told me otherwise it won't scale and so on, and don't care about it at the beginning, just build it. And I think also keep your team as small as possible at the beginning, as mentioned before. I think that's really important, and I think then in a later stage accept that your job position and your role will change all the time. Every time you add new people to your company, every time you change something in the organization and so on, your job profile for yourself as a founder will change all the time, and you have to do different things. And I think after some years you will never touch any code anymore, and it totally makes sense. But I think then you have other topics you have to focus on, and I think it's really important that you kind of stay or do the tasks with the same motivation and with the same happiness you did coding in the past.
Tatsächlich finde ich die Frage recht relevant. Ich spreche gerade Deutsch, weil ich mich dahingehend tatsächlich ein wenig besser artikulieren kann. Ich weiß, du wirst mich hassen, aber es tut mir leid. Zunächst einmal, die Antworten waren tatsächlich, die fand ich tatsächlich sehr aufschlussreich, auch weil ich dadurch ein wenig mehr lernen konnte. Zum anderen fand ich sie tatsächlich aber nicht voll beantwortet, insofern, als dass ich tatsächlich sagen würde, also wir leben in einer privaten Marktwirtschaft. Mit anderen Worten, Unternehmen sind nicht dann erfolgreich, wenn sie tatsächlich Innovation oder Ähnliches herantreiben, sondern wenn einfach der Bedarf da ist und wir dann in den Fokus gehen, dass Gewinnmaximierung oder ähnliche Aspekte, die man vielleicht in irgendeiner Art und Weise mit inkludieren kann, tatsächlich von Relevanz zeugen. Aber ich glaube, dass der tatsächlich wirklich einzige Aspekt, der tatsächlich wichtig ist, dass man nicht ein Unternehmen gründet, weil es das schon gibt, sondern weil es tatsächlich innovativ ist. Und der eine Punkt, der ich glaube wirklich tatsächlich immer funktioniert, weil ich meine, man kann auch ein Business bauen, ich glaube, wir kennen sie alle, die irgendwie, wo man sagt, das ist eigentlich eine einfache Idee, das war so simpel, die sind damit so erfolgreich geworden, weil es auf den Punkt genau das angeboten hat, was gebraucht wurde. Mit anderen Worten, ich würde tatsächlich eher sagen, dass wir der Auffassung sein sollten, es sollte innovativ sein, und zum anderen, wir müssen genau die Dinge anders machen, die es in der Branche schon gab. Zum einen, weil sie vielleicht fehlgeschlagen sind oder vielleicht, weil sie bereits erfolgreich waren. Ich glaube, wenn man ein Unternehmen gründet, dann ist es zumeist so, dass man sich daran orientiert, gibt es das in der Branche schon bereits? War es erfolgreich? Gibt es Pilotprojekte? Und ich glaube, man sollte sich nicht daran orientieren, was es schon gab, denn Chancen nutzen, die da sind, heißt für mich Chancen nutzen, die andere noch nicht genutzt haben. Und ich glaube, dass das immer dann von besonderer Effektivität zeugt. Und ich glaube, das ist das einzige Statement, das unabhängig von was man machen möchte, von wann das angeboten wird oder ähnliches, tatsächlich immer von Relevanz zeugt und dahingehend auch tatsächlich einen gewissen Mehrwert bietet.
Okay, I can imagine that would have been a point where we would have started a discussion. One more question from the audience, if there is one. Do we have one up here?
Hi, I want to ask you, do you think you're successful And if you think so, what did make you successful? Was it the team? Was it you? Was it the technology you were building?
Who wants to answer? Betz, I think.
Well, I would say the definition of successful is completely different for each person, and I think that's a good question because I think it's also important to maybe mention this whole kind of open source community because I think if you have a look at all these kind of really successful open source projects out there, like React, and there are so many, yeah, and I think all of the people who contribute to this open source project and to own build open source projects are, from my perspective, the same successful or at the same point successful than people founding a company, because I think this kind of piece of software is used by so many companies, projects, products, and so on, and help these companies to make it even more make these companies even more successful and develop their product the right way. So I think the success is really kind of a definition which each person has to define by themselves. But for me, I think successful means like doing the stuff I really wanted to do, and I think I do it because I work with a great team. I work with in a great company with a great culture, and we are having a great product out there. And I see that all of the people working at our company are really pushed towards the next step to build an even better product, to learn new things, to stay humbled, and so on. I think in this combination, I think I would say for me, I think it's success, but I think it depends on really each perspective and each individual.
I have to add, from my perspective, we are still 20 years, we are still on the market. There's not so many companies from the internet age surviving 20 years and being really like reinvented ourselves every year and being like state of the art in technology and beyond that. So, but why are we like that? I think it comes from humbleness, because when something is not good, we try to make it better. This is very deep ingrained in the company. This was from the first day, that when something was not good, I take it very, very personal when I make a mistake. And then I try to fix it as good as I can. And if it's not good, it's my fault and I have to fix it. And this is really much the culture today in the company, that everybody really cares. And this is kind of humbleness that drives you forward, that you don't get lazy in that way. You work hard and all that. Everybody knows that entrepreneurs work hard. But why do you work hard? Because you want to be loved, maybe. Maybe I just want to be loved. I don't know. When I'm not happy with stuff, I have to do it, make it better. And this is what everybody else does in the company. And maybe this is also why people coming to our company, because of this spirit that we're not just doing a job, but that we want to do something great together.
I totally agree, of course, and I wanted to add that it could be a great panel discussion for next year as a definition of successfulness or being successful. What I want to add was you can also be successful if you fail. So that is
I think that's an amazing end statement. And I want to thank our panelists for being here today and sharing their insights. And I want to thank you for listening in, and I hope you got something out of this.